Hi to everyone, I'm FIDE Master and FIDE Trainer Sebastian Fell, and this is a new video for the YouTube channel of iChess.net. A few weeks ago I shared with you an opening repertory for the improving player. You should definitely search it in the YouTube channel if you want to improve your opening results. But if you want to attack from move 1, then today I will show you another repertory full of gambits and aggressive ideas. Let's jump to the action with my suggestions. It all starts with a4, and we will start with the answer e5, which is the most popular response in the beginner and also in club player level. Here, I think that the best gambit for beginners is the Scotch gambit, which appears on the board after knight to f3, knight c6, d4, pawn takes, and c3. Usually black takes. If not, we can simply take and create a powerful and a strong pawn center. So he has to take and then knight take. In this position, white gets the usual compensation for the pawn. He has a better development, more space and control of the center with this little pawn. All in all, white has good compensation for the material, and black should be really careful about his next moves. Many grandmasters have played this opening with white, like the former world champion Mihail Tal, and also the strong Yugoslav player Velimirovic. They were two great attacking players, so this is quite suitable for this gambit repertory. Even Tal has played this position with the black pieces, and he lost. So this is a very interesting opening. Black has many different ideas, but as the idea of this video is to make it short, I will only present you one game of every gambit. The next moves are from one of the main lines. That's bishop b4, bishop c4, d6, and castle. Just you have to look at white's excellent position. He has 3 pieces developed. He has castle, so his king is very safe. While black is behind in development, he has only moved 2 pieces, and he has to lose 1 or 2 more tempos before he can castle. White also have more semi-open files. This is very typical of gambits. White has the C and the D file to work with his rooks. As the sayings go, one pawn less is one more file. This is a very important gambit concept. And here black generally takes on c3 to exchange one potential attacker. This knight could have go to d5, which is a very strong square for the knight, and also to weaken white's white pawn structure. But white now has the bishop pair and a very juicy b file for the rook. This is a very important file, as we will see in a few moves. Black plays knight to f6. The idea is to castle very quick, and white should attack immediately, because if black castle, he will have his king very safe and without many problems. So you can pause the video and think how white should attack here. This is a very important position. If you want to attack the king in the center, you have to be very quick. This is very important. But you also have to open the more files, especially the open files, so you can attack the king with the major pieces, with the rooks and the queen. So the move is e5, opening the position. No matter that white is sacrificing another pawn, because the ultimate idea is to give mate, so this is a bit more important than 1 and 2 pawns. Black has to take, and queen to b3. This is a very typical reaction. White is avoiding the exchange of the queens, and it's also attacking the always weak f7 pawn. And the problem with black is that he can't really play castle short. This will be ideal, but after bishop to a3, black is losing the exchange. This rook is lost, because if it moves, white can simply take the pawn with check and then take in the rook. So in this position, white will take the rook. He will win an exchange. Black has 2 pawns for the exchange, so he is not so bad material wise, but he has problems with the development. White has pressure over b7, so this bishop can't really move, and white will centralize the rooks with rook to d1 and the other one to e1, or even perhaps f4 to open more lines, and white will have all his pieces very active, while black's queen side can't move for a few moves. So the best move is queen to e7. Now bishop to a3 again. This is a very powerful move. This is another advantage of not having the b pawn. So we have this diagonal for the bishop. c5 is forced, and now bishop check. This check recovers the up pawn, and he maintains the attack. He has to block with the bishop. We can take. If he takes with the knight, we can take the pawn on b7. Black here can castle, but after rook to d1, black has many problems. This knight is pinned. This pawn is also pinned, so there's a lot of pressure over the pieces. The rook on a8 has to defend the pawn, so black has many problems here. White has full compensation for the pawn. So in this game, he took with the queen, and we can take the pawn on c5. This is a very important position for the evaluation of all the gambit. White has a clear compensation for the pawn. It's very important that this bishop is preventing black to castle short, which is what black is trying to do. So black will have to castle long, and this is very dangerous, because we have already this file open to pressure over the b7 pawn, and also there are a lot of diagonals to attack this king. He is a very weak king, so we will have a lot of attack. Also, this bishop is attacking the pawn, so if black simply castles now, we can take this pawn, and white is perhaps even winning, because material we are equal, but we have a very strong attack. So black played knight to e4, and now bishop to a3. Obviously the bishop should maintain this diagonal, so black can castle no, this diagonal, no, this diagonal. So black and castle short. And now knight to d2. This seems like a good move. Black is attacking the queen and the rook. This is a double attack, but it neglects the main problem of black position, which is the king in the center. And white has a very strong answer here. He has to play queen to b4, and after taking the rook here, yeah, you can pause the video and try to find how white wins in this position. The winning move is rook to d1. The black queen has to defend the mate on h7, so she has no much choice. She has to move the queen, and then this check. Just look this position. This is a really beautiful coordination of the pieces. All the pieces are working together, and the king is in real danger. And meanwhile, all of the black pieces, the rooks, the knights, are doing anything to defend the naked king. So only move, and we can give a check again, and only move, and we can take this pawn. And now this rook is falling because the bishop is controlling the f8 square, and white will keep mate in a few more moves. So black simply resigns here. Okay, so the problem with the Scotch variation is that after knight to f3, black has other options. This is not forced, obviously. In this position, after knight to f3, apart from knight to c6, which is the Scotch gambit we have already seen, black has other alternatives like knight to f6. This is the Petrov defense. This was very popular 10 years ago between the elite players. It's a popular way to play for a draw with black. So here I will suggest you a powerful gambit that I have played even in tournament games with good results. This is a Cochrane gambit. Is to take the pawn on e5, and after d6 the knight sacrifice knight to f7. So after takes, this variation was even played by former world champion Veselin Topalov against his arch rival Vladimir Kramnik. This was a very spectacular game. You can look for in a database. That game ended in a draw, if I'm not wrong. And this gambit will surely shock your opponent. White here will get a very strong compensation for the knight. First of all, we have two strong pawns center, but also you have good development for the pieces. We have more space. We will have a safer king after short castle. This king is very weak, and you have basically two ideas to play here with white. One idea is to try to punish this king with more sacrifices and playing e5 and sacrificing another pawn to open files and diagonals. This is the more crazy variation, but I think that it's even better to play a more slow approach. White best idea here is to simply develop the pieces, the knight to c3, the bishop to c4, then castle, and then the idea is to simply push your extra pawns. If your E and your F pawns can advance, perhaps e4, f5, f4, f5, then your opponent will be in big trouble. He will be suffocated without space to move his pieces. So we can look to a typical game. In the game, black played queen to 8. Well, it's very important to note that black can take the pawn, because after queen check and queen check, the knight is lost, and white has an extra pawn. This is very important variation. So in this game, black played queen here, and after knight to defend the pawn, d5. This seems like a logical response, trying to attack the center, gaining space for the pieces. Now this bishop can be developed to a more active square, but we will play obviously e5. As I have told you, always try to push your extra pawns to win even more space. And after bishop here, bishop to d3. And the plan is very straightforward. You should first castle short, and then advance the pawns to play f4 and 5, and then to win. Well, okay, this is this is not so easy, but you will definitely have all the fun. This is very fun to play with white, and black will have a very hard time to defend to all the threats. In this game, he played c5, and this seems to be a losing move, which is also funny because this seems a logical move. He is attacking our center, but the idea is that after castle, now the e pawn is not pinned, so we are threatening to take the knight. And if the knight moves, then we can simply take this pawn, and we will have 3 pawns for the piece, which is and a continuing attack. This king is too weak, so here we are simply winning. So he has to take on d4, and after a pretty forced variation, we have a check and another check, and queen to b5. Obviously, we don't want to exchange the queens when we are attacking, and white is always threatening something. His leading development and the very poor position of the black king gives him a winning advantage. We just need to incorporate more pieces. These pieces need to add fuel to the attack and give mate. It's really very easy to play this position. Black play here and check and check and check. The rook is now in the attack, and now the other rook, and white has get his last pieces into attack, and black resign here. White will give mate in just a few moves. For example, if the queen goes here to defend the bishop, then simply check and rook to d8, and it's all over. So okay, after knight to f3, there's another option for black. This is the filial defense with d6, but this opening was already covered in a previous video about traps, so we can move to another defenses after e4. Let's look to the French with e6. The French is very popular at good level, as black has very concrete ideas to follow. But with the gambit I'm proposing you will completely destroy his preparation. What I suggest you is to play the wing gambit. That's knight here and e5, and after c6 the gambit is to play b4. This is the wing gambit, as is a gambit in the wing. not too difficult to understand. So the idea is to exchange this pawn on c5, so to win more control over the center. After takes and a3 and take and c3 and d4, this position resembles a typical French, but with one important difference. This pawn in c3 defends the pawn on d4, which is the main focus of black's counterattack in the French. So here, as this pawn is very well defended, white can play more easily in either flank. Also, we have to know that this pawn is a little weak, but black has no real way to attack it with the pieces, so it's not so important, this position. As the center is close, we have to play in the queen side or in the queen side or in the king side. The two approaches are very interesting to play. In the queen side we have a simple plan, that's to exchange the bad bishop for the good bishop of blacks, and then to take advantage of the weak squares on the black squares, perhaps playing something like this. This is impossible. This is more impossible to play here and here. After the change of the bishops, this is a very good square for the knight. And also we can use the opens or the semi-open files, the A and the B files, with the rooks to try to pressure over these black pawns. This is quite similar to the Benko gambit, also known as the Volga gambit. But in this game we will see the other approach, which is more aggressive, and is to play in the king side, to attack with the pieces in the king side. We will see a game when FIDE master with the white pieces simply crushes black, who is a grandmaster. The grandmaster played here. This is a very typical French move to attack this pawn, but as we have already seen, this pawn is very well protected, so we have no real problem and we can play bishop to d3. Usually the bishop must develop to a2 in the typical French variations, as here the bishop interrupts the queen's defense of this pawn, but here we can play bishop to d3 and this is more powerful. And after castle we can play g4. This is the most direct way to attack on the king side. This is fourth. We can take, and after f4 white is threatening to play g5 and this bishop is trapped, so he has to go back, and g4, g5. So the idea is pretty primitive but pretty powerful to play queen here. So black will have to weaken his structure with g6, and then we can play h4 and h5 to open the black position. In this game black played g6 immediately, and after the rook transfer and h4 white is is very ahead in the attack. So white's idea is to simply play a4, h5 and rook here, and then the queen, and we will be keeping mate on the h file. So black tried to win space with rook and h6, but after takes and takes we have rook to f6. Now this pawn can be defended, so black has to take the rook, and after this check, this pawn is a really powerful pawn to create a lot of matching nets around the black king. Here white has a lot of different attacking ideas. For example, another important thing is that now black doesn't have his dark square bishop, so this bishop now looks really great. This is a very strong diagonal for this bishop. If the king tries to defend the pawn on c6, white, well, we can pause the video and try to discover how white is winning here. White can play bishop takes with check, because if black takes, we can check and check again and check again and queening, and white has a crushing attack and also material advantage, so simple. So black has to play king to f8, and we can simply take the pawn, and black can't really survive this. White is simply threatening to give check, and after the king moves, we can move the queen to c4, and we are winning. Black, he's a grandmaster, losing to only a FIDE master, so he desperately tried to play b4 to block the diagonal, but white will simply continue next with with b5, and he's winning. This is total desperation, and we can give check and take the knight. Black tried to activate the queen, so he has a few checks, but queen here is a really great move. Defending the check, also threatening a lot of discovered checks, and this queen has no check. The queen is defending this, the knight is defending this, the bishop is defending f4. Black has no check, so he simply lost. He played queen here, bishop check, and a beautiful finish with bishop to c1, because if he takes the bishop, we can simply keep mate here, or here, we can choose. So he played rook to c8 and simply queen takes. Black resigns. After king takes, we can take the queen, and we have two pieces up. This is a very strong material advantage. So this is a very interesting variation to play, and which is more interesting, I think, is that we can play something very similar in the Sicilian defense, which is another important variation and a popular variation against e4. This is a Sicilian, and we can play b4. This is obviously very similar to the French variation we have already seen. In fact, it can even transpose. After takes d4, for example a6, black has many variations, but the idea is pretty much the same, to play e3 and c3. White gets a very similar compensation. White has a very strong pawn center, very well protected, which gives him more space. Black, for example, if he plays this d5, we can play e5, and this is a complete transposition to the French. This is the same as the French. So in this game, he played a6, and after taking d6, and as black has not attacked our center, we can use this to win more control of the center, to win more space with a4. Remember, in the French, we push this pawn later on, so here we win a tempo and advancing in before developing the knight. So White simply developed his pieces, and here White is simply better. It doesn't matter that Black has an extra pawn which is doing anything. White has a better pawn structure, he has more space, he has more control of the center, he has better development, his king is much safer. And here I think that the most logical continuation for White is to play e5. We create this same formation as in the French, and now this knight has a tough life. Here, for example, after knight to h6, we can improve the position of our worst piece. This is something really important. Always try to improve the position of your worst pieces, and our worst piece is the knight on e3, so knight to c4. We are threatening to take this pawn, so he has to play d5, and now knight to e3. And here we are in a kind of French structure again, but this is way better than in the last game, because this knight is helping White to play g4 and later on to play g5 or f4. This is quite interesting also. And also this knight is preventing this other knight, this black knight, to move. So if we compare this position with the French we have already seen, it's clear that White is better here. But in the game, in this position, White played a more forceful and creative solution, and that is knight to g5. This is another good option. I think it's more concrete. It needs a little more calculation, but it's really strong. If Black simply tries to develop his pieces, I think that e5 and knight takes, this is very strong, because if Black takes, we can simply check and simply f5, and we are attacking with all our pieces. This is simply crushing. I don't see a way for Black to survive this. So this is pretty much the idea of knight to g5. The idea is to sacrifice the knight here or even here to open the position of the Black king in the center. Black played h6, and after queen to h5, we have a kind of scholar mate again. We have already seen a lot of scholars mates variations in a few traps videos. Here Black has to play g6, and after queen to a3, the queen is obviously pinning this pawn, so Black can't really take the knight. And we are also trying to sacrifice the knight here with the queen next. So Black in the game played the bishop, and now this sacrifice is simply crushing. He played e4, e5, and now okay, this should be winning, to take the pawn and to take another pawn. Black here has 2 pawns and a continuing attack, but it's very important when you attack, don't attack only with the queen. This is very important, because the queen can't mate alone. She needs more pieces to give a checkmate. So always try to bring more pieces to attack, and this is what White did in this position. He played knight to c4, and the knight, black can't really prevent the knight to go here. He moved the bishop to defend the pawn on e6, but we can simply take and c4, and the bishop has to move, and bishop a3, we are threatening knight here and to take the queen. So he blocks the diagonal, and queen to a6, and black can't defend the mate. The only way is to sacrifice the queen on e8, and this is simply losing. So black resign here. So okay, finally I would like to share with you another gambit, this time against the solid Caro-Kann. This is c6. This is another popular variation, and a pretty solid variation defense. In a previous video, in the traps video I have done, I think 1 or 2 weeks ago, we have already seen the fantasy variation. This is to play d4 and after d5 f3. I think that this is a very good option for the attacking player. It's full of gambits and traps for white. So the traps are for black. So in this video I would like to suggest you another gambit that's even more surprising. It's not very well known, and I only discovered it after seeing a video of Grandmaster Simon Williams, also known as Chinchar GM. And the gambit starts with bishop to c4, and after d5 to play bishop to b3, and after taking queen to h5. This is like a very crazy variation, very primitive, but this variation was played by Magnus Carlsen in a Blitz game, so we should take it more seriously perhaps. He played against Tomaszewski, I think. He's a very strong grandmaster from Russia, and Carlsen win. It was a Blitz game, obviously, but Magnus played, so it should be interesting. There is not much theory here, but I would like to share with you an attacking idea that we have already seen when we analyze the Grand Prix attack against the Sicilian defense. Here black has only 2 options to defend the f7 pawn. He has to play or e6, but it blocks this bishop. And their idea is to play g6, which is more popular because the bishop can't move, and it also attacks the queen, so it gains a little tempo. Black obviously has to move the queen, and white seems to try to recover the pawn, to retake the pawn on e4. So black obviously can defend the pawn, but here we can sacrifice definitely the pawn with f3 and gaining like the momentum, the initiative. Black has to take, we retake, and after some simple moves we have this attacking idea, which is very with bishop, which is very interesting and very typical of the Grand Prix attack, as I have already said. The white's idea is to exchange this bishop, which is the best defender of the king side, and to put a lot of pressure over this little pawn and this little pawn. The h and the f pawn are very attacked with the knight, the queen, and the bishop. This is very important. Here, for example, if black tries to attack on the queen side with a4 and b4, which seems very logical, black is threatening to win the bishop. Now white is winning. This is a pretty surprising statement, but it's true. White is winning. So you can pause the video if you like, and try to discover how white is winning here. Here white plays takes. This is very logical, and now the exchange sacrifice with the idea of eliminating the last defender of this square. This is a critical square. White is threatening a deadly double check, so black has to move a queen, and after bishop here white will take the pawn on f5, so having a pawn for the exchange, and he has completely destroyed black castle, so white simply has a winning attack here. We can see a likely continuation. This is not at all forced, obviously, but after rook here to play knight here, this is pretty logical. Black is defending this pawn, and he's also attacking the d4 pawn, but white can defend, and after a central thrust like this, we can simply play queen here, and black can't really avoid the discover check. If the kings moves here, we have mate, very impressive, and if the queen and the kings go here, we can mate again with the queen. So a logical response would be rook to a7 to try to defend the second rank, but we can take the pawn with check, and we can give check again. If the kings go to the center, then this is simply crushing. White has a material advantage. He has 3 pawns for the change, and a very strong attack. I think that this knight is falling, is simply crushing. So the kings has to go here again, and we can check again, and we can take, and white has a crushing attack and a material advantage. So with this gambit, you have now a complete repertory for white. Probably in a few weeks I will upload another video with a repertory for black, another gambit repertory, but for with the black pieces. But for now, if you like my suggestions, I recommend you to search master games with these gambits and look at them, so you can get a feeling of the positions and get some new ideas against any variation. Okay, I hope you have enjoyed the video and have learned something. We have seen a lot of spectacular variation here, and see you next Friday for more video classes here in the YouTube channel of ichess.net. Bye.